And I say this with all sincerity because we are in a very unique position in our history. Islamic history has been what is described as one of the great scholars of Islam. His name was Ibn Khaldun. And he wrote an introduction to a history of the world. It's called the Muqaddamah. And he wrote this introduction to try to understand what is the relationship of people one to another. And so when he looked at Islamic history, he found that it is like a circle. At some points when we are on the high level practicing our Islam, as in the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Khulafa Rashideen, when we're on a high point, we're at the top of the circle. But what he found out is that sometimes when generations go by, when the first generation, the second generation comes, they are not as familiar, or they are not as sincere as the first generations, and it starts to go down. And so it is a circle. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who raises and the one who lowers us. And it is critical for us to understand. And after traveling many years in the Muslim world and trying to understand and look at the history, we realize now this is a very critical time that we are in. And I want to give you an example of this cycle. It is reported in the 13th century of the Common Era that the Muslims were widespread throughout the earth. And the Khalifa at that time was in Baghdad. But the Khalifa himself was not really a serious person, very young and not serious about Islam. He was more serious about writing poetry, the sha'r. He was sha'r. So he spent his time writing poetry and smelling beautiful flowers in the garden. And his army, those to protect Islam, were very small, only about 12,000. And one of the great scholars of Islam, Ibn al-Athir, rahimahullah, who writes very famous Islamic history, he said that there was things that happened during that time that were so strange and so devastating to Muslims that I wish I was never born. Imagine this now. He said, I wish I was never born, so I would not have to be the one to write this down. But the fact that Allah gave me life and ability, I have to write what I'm seeing going on to the Muslim world. Instead of one ummah, we were broken into nation states based upon tribe, based upon language, upon region. And the rich were extremely rich and the poor were extremely poor. And Ibn al-Athir writes that in the area of Iraq itself and Baghdad, which was the center of Islam at the time, that the ulama, the scholars, were only paid small amounts of money. The scholars were very poor people, so they called them derwish, or the fuqara. These were the scholars. But the slave of the Khalifa, one of his slaves, named Ala ad-Din al-Tabarasi, his land, he had over 300,000 acres of land. This is the slave of the Khalifa, right? I'm not talking about how much money that the Khalifa had himself. And it is said, and it is amazing, it's written down, that on Eid day, when we have our Eid, and everybody lines up, because of protocol, you can't start Eid Salat until the Khalifa has come and all of his slave servants and all of his courtiers and everybody has gotten in. You can't start your Eid Salat. Now we normally get our Eid because we want to run out Eid Mubarak and enjoy our day. Imagine this scene now. the slaves and the servants of the Khalifa are coming into the line and everything is being set up. And Ibn al-Athir writes that Eid Salat on that particular year, they made the Eid Salat at midnight. That's how long it took. Midnight they made Eid Salat. When Hajj came, there were no Hujjaj recorded leaving from Baghdad going to Mecca, because they were too busy with Hayat al-Dunya, wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ had said very clearly to Muslims, Inna li kulli umma fitna wa fitna to ummati al-mal. Every nation has a trial and test. The trial and test of this nation is wealth. Never forget this tradition. It's a simple one, but it's a very deep one. And so the contradictions were there. Far in the northeast part of Asia, the land of the Mongols, they sent delegations into the Muslims. And the Muslims, thinking that they controlled the world, and just because of the fact that we're Muslim, just by name, then Allah is going to save us. Allah gave us everything, so we have to be saved. And so a delegation of the Mongols, their business people, came into the area, Khwarizmi area, and they were humiliated, their beards were cut off, and they were sent back to their people. And when other people came to check, they killed the other ones. And when the leader of the Mongols heard this, his name was Genghis Khan, and he said, there is only one sun in the heavens, and there is only one Khan on this earth. And he unleashed his people. He unleashed them upon the Muslims. And what is described as they went from city to city, what is described that the Muslims not being prepared, enjoying the dunya too much, fighting with each other, spending more time fighting other Muslims than dealing with their real enemies. He went from city to city as forces. And the description of it is a horrible description. You're talking hundreds and thousands of people in the cities being killed. And one of the most dangerous things that he did, and we have to take lessons from history, one of the most dangerous things that he did was that when he conquered a people, he then said to them, do you want to live? And they said yes. And he took this section of the people that he did not kill, and he said, when we go to fight the next Muslim group, we'll give you some Mongol clothes. You're going to be front lines. You're the front lines against the other Muslims. And they were so weak-minded at that time, so afraid to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to leave this world, they accepted. And they went in the front lines. And so it reached this point of humiliation, where one Muslim against the other one. And when this treachery came in, then the ultimate punishment came with the circling of Baghdad itself. And the Mongols circled the city. And Ibn al-Athir, what they write in this one passage, which is really strange thing, but it's something to think about. It said that the Khalifa was in his palace, and there was a favorite concubine, singer, female servant that he had, and she sang beautiful things, and he was listening to her poetry and her singing. They call him belly dancer today. He was listening to this, and the Mongols launched their missiles, and this spear came through the windows, and it killed the servant. It killed the concubine. And the Khalifa was upset. He was really upset. And so he ordered that they make better windows, better protection, and he ordered another concubine to come. Now, most historians pass this over, But this is a serious thing. When leadership reaches this point, where it does not connect with the people, and with the people who have wealth, have no desire to submit to Allah, they only want their wealth. They become like blinded with their wealth. And it is in this case that they were surrounded. The rest is known to history. Over 3 million people were killed at that time. The Tigris and Euphrates were black with ink of books that they threw into, and it became red with the blood of the Muslims. And this was a terrible situation. It was a terrible situation. And the Mongols continued on. They continued through attacking the Muslim world until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised up in Egypt, in Al-Qahira, in Misr, one of the people called the Mamluks. And the Mamluk people were mercenary soldiers who were captured in southern Russia. And they were trained soldiers. And the leader of the Mamluks, who had taken control of Egypt, that was the center of Islam now, Saifuddin Qutuz rahimahullah. He united the Muslims. He united the believers, and he took a stand against the Mongols. And when they went out to face the Mongols, imagine this, the force that they were facing. Europe was trembling. Europe had no defense. So the Muslims was the last defense for the whole world. When they went out to meet them, they were going into the month of Ramadan. And when the final confrontation took place, it was in the odd nights of the last 10 days of Ramadan. Imagine this. They're riding through the desert to confront one of the most vicious armies ever assembled. But they trusted in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their fast gave them strength. So they did something with their fast. Their fast connected them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the taqwa. That's what we're looking for out of our fast, to get the benefits. And they were able to take a stand. Many Muslim countries today, I've been in a few of them, the people sleep, they go to sleep in the morning, and they sleep all the way until dhuhr. And if Allah has mercy on them, then they wake up and make Salatul Dhuhr. Then in some cases, they go back to sleep. And they sleep all the way until Asr. And if Allah has mercy on them, then they will make Salatul Asr. And then between Asr and Maghrib, now they're busy making their samosas and faluda and their drinks and everything, getting ready now. And then after Maghrib comes and they make Salat, then they eat and drink all night, hatta matla al-fajr, till the coming of the dawn, eating and drinking. And when after Fajr comes, they go back to sleep. So during the day, they become like Ashab al-Kahf. They become like the companions of the cave during the day. That's the opposite of Saifuddin Qutuz. That's the opposite of what the Muslims were at that point. They were awake. They were awake in their fast. Right? They saw the fast as something else. And this is critical for us to start to think like this. To start to analyze what it is that we are doing. When the Quran speaks about Ramadan and speaks about fast, the first issue, and we should never forget this, the first issue is Ramadan itself. And in the oft-repeated verses in Surah Al-Baqarah from verse 185, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. That this month of Ramadan is the time in which Quran was revealed as a guidance to humanity and clear evidence from the guidance and from that which separates the truth from falsehood. Furqan. So the essence of this experience we are going through is not just eating and drinking. We are in the month of Ramadan. And this is the time of guidance. This is the time of bayinat, clear evidence. And we need to look at, I need to look at my life. You need to look at your life. When you are in this state, you need to look at ourselves. And it's not just starvation. If a person's in starvation, they're trembling, they're weak, and all they can think about is just, when will the food come? And when the food comes, they'll eat anything. That's not the condition we're in. This condition is a condition of guidance. First, the Quran came down. That is the significance of the month. That's the most important thing about the month. To seek guidance from the words of Allah Azza wa Jal. That as we go through different sections of the Quran, we should try to have tafsir, tafhim al-Quran, try to understand what is going on, what is being given to us. Otherwise, it just becomes parrots, words like a parrot. And the parrot can produce words. And I'm sure that if you have a good parrot and you read Quran to it enough, he can read like a qadi. Because he's just going to produce the sound, right? But what is the highest stage that we need to get from this? That is what we are looking for. Hudan linnas wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal furqan. Clear evidence separating truth from falsehood. Watch the things that are going on. Even the people who call themselves so-called Muslims, if they are carrying out acts, killing innocent people, right? Terrible character. If these things are going on, then you know the truth now. It's clear. And it's no waswisa in our minds now. The Prophet ﷺ said, Sufidat al-shayateen, that the evil of the jinn are in chains. They're locked up. So whatever voice that you hear now in your head, that's you. That's your nafs al-amara bisu. That's your evil side talking to you. The spiritual ear is clear. And now we can think, we can see. That is the essence. That's why we're put in this condition. And then it goes down further and it says, whoever witnesses this month, فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Fast. If you witness the month, if you are not traveling, if you're not sick, if you're mature, if you have your sanity, then fast. Do imsak. Abstain from food, abstain from drink, abstain from sexuality. And this will give you something, and the verses are now telling you what is going on, what's going to happen. Why do we do imsak? Think about this. Some people do imsak all year round. Because imsak in Arabic only means abstinence. It means you stay away from things. You hold. Some people do imsak with certain foods. They have an allergy to peanuts. They have certain allergies, and so they do imsak. They look on the package and they say, is it peanut free? Because you want to know if it has nuts, imsak. So that person with the allergies, that person who's suffering from diabetes or suffering from high blood pressure, whatever it is, might stay away from sweet things. They will do imsak. It's medical, for medical reasons. And this is done by people all the time. There are other people who do imsak for beauty reasons. This is a strange phenomenon. But some years back, there was this woman in Britain, they called her Twiggy. And Twiggy was so thin that she turned sideways, you could hardly see her. She became the fashion model. And so somehow in the minds of the people, thinness emaciation is beauty instead of suffering. And so many of our younger generation who want to wear the latest clothes, they will do imsak. So they won't eat food. You even have a mental condition, anorexia. And that is when some people will literally eat and vomit the food because they don't want to gain weight, because they got to put on the latest fashions. And the latest jeans that they are wearing, some cases are so tight, it's like you painted the leg. Tight jeans. And don't worry, those of you who follow fashions, pretty soon your jeans are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. In 10 years, you're going to be wearing big jeans. That's how it goes, like this. Right? So some people now who want to wear the tight clothes, they will do imsak. This is a common thing now amongst us. There are other people who will do imsak for political reasons. And this is called a hunger strike. Especially people who are in prisons and nobody's listening to them. They will do imsak. They will do a special hunger strike in order that their message will get out to the public. And if you are involved in this, and I pray you never get in this situation, before you do a hunger strike, you need somebody to teach you the rules of a hunger strike. There are literally ahkam. That's the same way we learn the rules of fasting. There are rules of a hunger strike. Because you don't want to kill yourself right away. You want your body to last as long as possible so people on the outside can hear. So therefore, it's a hunger strike that they're doing to get the message out. And so Muslims, as our verses are going down now telling us about fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kutiba alaykumus siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed on you, it's written on you like it was written on those before, in order that you would have taqwa, that you would have the consciousness of Allah. So we're not fasting for physical reasons, although scientifically there is proof to show that fasting is a good thing for the body, actually. It's relaxing the body. But that's not the reason why we are fasting. That's not the reason. Because if you don't eat right, if you're not active in your fast and you don't eat right, you might actually find you gain weight in Ramadan. Some people eat so much sweets afterwards and they're so tired during the day, they're putting on weight. So they're literally starving and that's not the reason why you fasted. The reason why you fasted is taqwa, to gain the consciousness of Allah. To start to feel the presence. Allah's knowledge is closer to us than our jugular veins. To get this consciousness of Allah, that is the angelic state. That's the condition we are being put in. What is the importance of this? Right now, our numbers are expanding. We're all over the place. We're all over the GTA. Numbers are huge. And the pictures that came, and there's a recent picture, either last year or this year, it even shows Mecca. There's so many people in Mecca making tawaf that the tawaf stopped. It's too many people. Literally stopped. And so, the huge numbers of Muslims. But the Prophet ﷺ said in a famous hadith reported by Tawban, he said that the nations are about to pounce on you. The people, all the different warring nations, they're about to pounce on you like somebody who's eating food and he calls his friend to enjoy some of the food. So he says to the food, Tal, I got some nice food. Come eat it. Come enjoy it. So the nations are going to pounce upon you. Look what the Prophet ﷺ saw, right? Look what he saw. And so the Sahaba then said, أَوَ مِنْ قِلَّةٍ نَحْنُ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَا رَسُولَ Allah. Are we small in number? He said, بَلْ أَنْتُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ كَثِيرٌ. He said, no. You will be large in number. You'll be huge in number, Muslim all over the place. But Allah will take the fear of you out of the hearts of your enemies. And He will put a disease in your heart. What did He mean by this? When He's talking about the fear of Muslims, it's not fear like you're afraid of a suicide bomber or you're afraid of, no. What it's talking about is izzah. It's izzah, which means strength, respect. What is this izzah? The best example of izzah that I have ever seen in my life was in South Africa. I lived in South Africa for many years, doing dawah. And one year we went to a huge game reserve, which is on the eastern side of South Africa. And it is a huge game reserve. It's not a zoo like our zoo. The animals are like prisoners of war. And they're in cages, right? These are not prisoners of war in the cage. The animals are outside living in their natural habitats. And we were riding on a high vehicle. And the driver, he had a gun. This is real, right? This is not a zoo. He had a gun, right? And we saw elephants. We saw a zebra. We saw many of the famous animals. But it was strange that in all of the cases that I saw, when human beings came by, the animal got nervous. Because human beings, like, we are really some dangerous creatures, right? Look at what we're doing to the environment. Like, we're killing everything, man. We kill so many people, the birds must be ashamed at us. The things that people can do. But the vehicle came upon a pride or a group of lions. And the driver said, don't look the lion in his eyes. Whatever you do, don't look in his eyes. This is izzah, right? Don't look in the lion's eyes. So the lions, there are about 7 lions on the side of the road. All the other animals are afraid of human beings. They were sleeping, they looked up at us, and they just yawned and they went back to sleep. Because the lion has izzah. The lion has strength. The lion kills to eat food. The lion does not kill because he enjoys killing people. He's not a serial killer. You know a serial killer? The ones that kill people because they like to kill. That's not a lion. It's a survival mechanism inside of the lion. And so the lion has izzah, and that is how the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was and can return to. Having this izzah, and that is respect. It's respect. And it's not fear, because we would help the innocent. That's how we were known. Our leaders would show mercy. That's how we were known. But they would not dare attack us. They would not dare disrespect our women. And it is reported that in the Khilafat of Mu'tasim Billah, one of the Khalifas of the Abbasids, this is before the last one, this one had strength. And one Muslim woman was on a journey with a group, and she was captured by the Christian leaders. And she cried, "Wa Mu'tasim." She cried out, and the word got back to Mu'tasim. And Mu'tasim wrote a letter to the Christian, and he said, if you don't release her, then I will send an army to you that is so big, the front will reach you, and the back is still coming from me. The Christian leader said, hear and obey. No problem, because we respect you. He didn't attack him, but he said, these are my people. Respect us, and we will solve our own problems within ourselves. And that is the izzah. That is the izzah which is so important for the Muslims at this point in time. And that is why we need to understand what is going on. And when Sayfuddin Qutuz rahimahullah stood in front of the Mongols, imagine this, odd nights, they made tahajjud prayer. And they prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine this tahajjud prayer they made. And they prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they went forward. Allah gave them victory. They drove the Mongols back. And those of the Mongols, nations that they ran into, and the Mongols respect people of power who respect themselves, they gave them dawah and they became Muslims. And many of them were great leaders of the Muslim world. You remember Aurangzeb, right? Al-Mughal, the Mughals. Great leaders of Islam. I'm sure we have some Khans right here in the audience, right? They became Muslim. And that is the izzah. That is the izzah of Islam. And after this time, after this main destruction of Islam, when the Muslims stood up and they liberated themselves, established justice, they started to give the wealth toward education. During the Mamluk period, it was a flowering age of Islamic education. And many of the great scholars, Ibn Kathir, and many of the people that you read, the books that you're reading, came in the Mamluk period. This is how it was. It was a low period, and then it was a high period, based upon how we look at what we are doing. And so we need to take this fast again from the basic level. And the oft-repeated hadith that we mentioned previously, that the Prophet ﷺ said clearly, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعِ وَرُبَّ قَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ قِيَامِهِ إِلَّا السَّعَةِ. There are some who will fast and get nothing from their fast but hunger. There are others who will stand in the night, qiyam, and they get nothing but sleeplessness. What is he saying to us? He's saying there's something else to the fast. There's something else to the Taraweeh. When you're doing Taraweeh, it's supposed to be, it's from Raha. Taraweeh. It's Raha. Enjoy yourself. The Prophet ﷺ would say, Arihna bis salat to Bilal. Relax us with salat. It's not supposed to be a burden on you, right? And if a person cannot make the 20 rakats, right, for some reason, you're tired, it's okay. We have to understand, our religion is ease and balance, right? Understand what it is. And so, the balance that we need to have to understand where we are going and the essence of it. But there are some, it is like aerobics. They're doing exercise and they're going up and down. We have to now begin to read, to understand, to think, to take our deen to another stage. We are in a very critical time here in Canada itself. You will be surprised to know that over 100 years ago, 200 years ago, there were Muslims living here. There were Muslims in this land. Number one, there were people who believed in one God amongst the native First Nation people. And that's the essence of Islam. But when the Canadian government, which was at that time just in Ontario, and this section here, they got a deal from the Hudson Bay Company. Like you go to the bay, this is the big bay. That Hudson Bay controlled what is called the Northwest Territories. A huge swath of land, most of Canada. And they did a deal, a discount. And so the government bought it. And they needed to open up the land. And the British government and the Canadian government had a relationship with the Ottoman Empire, with the Turkish Ottoman Empire. So they said, bring people. Can you send some people from your empire who will help us settle this country? It's a huge country. We don't have a lot of people. Send some people. But because of the racism in this society, they said they cannot be black skin, they cannot be brown skin, they cannot be yellow skin, they must be white skin or pink. Send somebody from that range of skin. So the Ottomans said, okay. And so people came from Albania, from Bosnia, some Turkish people, some Syrian people, some Lebanese people. They could meet the color line, and many of them were Muslims. And they came to these lands, and they settled in the Midwest. That is the reason why the oldest registered masjid that we have, Masjid Rashid in Edmonton, Alberta, is the oldest masjid in Canada. And the Cedar Rapids Masjid in the United States, in the Midwest, is the oldest masjid in the United States, because Muslims were there. And they settled these lands. They lived in these lands. But the problem was, are you doing your rituals? Do you do your salat? Do you do your fasting? Do you pay your zakat? Do you do your things just to do it for a cultural reason? Or do you know why you're doing it? And are you passing it on to the younger generation? Can you explain it to the younger generation so they can see the benefit? Unfortunately, many of the early people who came, good hearts, but didn't have the ability to pass it on like they wished they could. And many of the Muslims melted down in the melting pot of society. They melted down, intermarried, lost their deen. There are some traces of it left if you go to Alberta. There are some traces left even in Ontario, London, Ontario. Some traces of the early generations that came. There were other generations who came in the 20th century, who came out of Palestine and now Asia and then Africa and started to come into these lands. And the struggle is, how do you benefit from your religion? How do you get the best out of it? We have to raise the fast from Sawm, like one scholar said, Sawm al-Umum, the fast of general people, hunger. Raise it from hunger. Take this condition of your body, take your mind off your hunger. Take your mind off your thirst and start looking around, right? So that your eyes will begin to fast. And if your eye is looking at something haram, some haram thing on the television, now we're carrying handheld devices with us. And many of the things that pop up on it, some evil things are popping up. So put it in your pocket sometime. Control it. Control your eyes. Lower your gaze. Let your eyes fast. Let the ears fast. Let our ears, that we don't listen to things that are haram. Let our tongues fast, that we're not lying on people, swearing, backbiting, scandalizing people. Let the tongue fast. Let the hands fast, so that these hands that we have will do righteous deeds. It will not harm other people. That the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you and gave me, it will not harm other people. This is the second level that we're talking about. That is the Sawm al-Khusus. That's another level now. It's another stage of the fast. The hunger is there. So we need suhoor. We have iftar. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Tasaharu fa inna fi suhoori barakah. He said, make your suhoor. There's blessings in it. Don't leave it. And he said, when iftar comes, make it right away. Because this is not supposed to be harming my body. This is supposed to be making me strong and self-controlled. That when the month is over, right, and then the 6 days we're trying to keep it going, We're trying to fast during the year, trying to fast on the Mondays and Thursdays, on the white nights, middle of the month, trying to keep it going. Now the fast becomes real. And that is the individual that we call Abdullah. Abdullah, or Amatullah, the slave of Allah. Not the slave of desires, not the slave of the dunya, but the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there's another character. His name is Abdul Ramadan. Abdul Ramadan is the slave of Ramadan. His Lord only comes 1 month per year. And when his Lord comes, Abdul is busy. He's busy in the masjid. And you see the difference. Do you see the difference here in Masjid Quba? Do we see it? Once Ramadan comes in, the masjid's packed, right? When Shawwal comes, where did they go? That is a serious question. We have another character that we identified. His name is Abdul Laylatul Qadr. You ever heard of him before? 27th night, then you see Abdul Laylatul Qadr. He's the slave of the night of power. You have some individuals who's Abdul Eid. Right? He's a slave of Eid. You only see him once per year, and then he's gone for the rest. Finished. We want to be Abdullah and Amatullah, right? That a real change is going to come about in us. And we have to pray that this happens with Muslims. Because if you're Abdul Ramadan, if our majority is Abdul Ramadan, remember what the Prophet ﷺ said, going back to the hadith of Tawban, right? That our numbers would be great. And then the Prophet said, but you will be ghutha ka ghutha as-sayl. You'll be like foam on the water. Foam and sticks running on the water. You know when you look at the foam, it looks like a lot, but if the water goes to the right, it goes to the right. If the water goes to the left, it goes to the left. So we will become right-wing conservative. We will become left-wing Marxist-Leninist. Anywhere the water is pushing us, right? That's one who has no roots. It's got no roots. But the Prophet ﷺ said, these numbers, Allah would put a wahan in our hearts. Sickness. And they said, O Messenger of Allah, what is this wahan? And he said, Hubbid dunya wa karahiyatul maut. You will love the dunya and you will hate to die. Be afraid to die. And Sadaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It has come to pass. And this is why we're under a test. The whole ummah is under a test. And this confusion, this insanity that is going on, it's not going to stop. Wal-iyadu billah. It's going to intensify until Muslims wake up and start to be Muslim for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the fast becomes real. And the deepest level of the fast is Sawm Khusus al-Khusus or Khawas al-Khawas, and that is the higher level where the heart is fasting. This is a deep level. What is the heart of a Muslim? Is it just a lump of flesh? No. Many people used to think that the human being is a brain, which is like a hard drive, and it's giving commands to our heart and the rest of the body. Now, even scientists recognize that most of our decisions are actually made in your heart. And there's neurons, there's a connection between the heart and your brain, because most of your decisions are emotional decisions. It's emotional decisions. And if you go close to the words of the Prophet ﷺ, one time a person came to the Rasulullah ﷺ and said, tell me about birr. Tell me about righteousness. Okay, give me some advice. In this case, he said, give me some advice. And the Prophet ﷺ said, istafti qalbak. Ask your heart. When the Muslims are lining up in salat, The Prophet ﷺ said, shoulder to shoulder, keep your ranks tight so your hearts will not be divided. Why did he say hearts? Not the physical thing, right? The heart is like your conscience. It's the door to the soul. It's something which inside of us gives us that ability to make the right decision. It's the essence of the person. It's not the soul. We don't know what the soul is. Ar-Ruh is from the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not revealed to us. But the heart, we understand a lot about this. And your heart can become sick. You become sick with pride. Thinking that you're better or I'm better because of my color or my race or my language or my money. Right? Pride is a terrible thing. The heart can be diseased. And these diseases of the heart need to be understood. And there are certain protections around the heart. Certain protections. One of them, fasting, is a protection. And the scholars have shown us we have to avoid doing things with haste. Don't do things with haste, in a hurry. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-ajala min ash-shaytan. He said, haste, doing things too quickly, is from the devil. Take your time. Do things properly. This is a crucial thing for us. We are surrounded, we are protected. We are protected by our taqwa. We're protected by our character. We're protected how we deal with other individuals. And this is the beauty of the fast. So in conclusion today, we need to do something with our fast. We've got at least 2/3 of the month left. We have to try to do something with our fast. In other words, even if it's just trying to understand something from the Quran, reading something, right? Volunteering, volunteer for the masjid. Collect funds, keep this masjid going. Do something for the poor people. We have groups like the Muslim Welfare Center. We're feeding people, feeding poor, feeding the Muslim poor. We will even go to people's houses, senior people, and bring the food to them. And we will feed the First Nations people. We will respect the people of this land. Do something with the fast. Use this ability that Allah put you in. Don't look at it as a handicap. It's not a handicap. You're actually stronger than the other person. Especially if you come out of this month holding your head up, right? And can control this. That means you can control your desires. And if we control our desires, inshallah, it can protect us from pornography. It can protect us from casinos. It can protect the younger generation from drugs and alcohol. Now they are making ganja and marijuana. They make it permissible. Right? That doesn't mean anything for a practicing Muslim. But somebody on the borderline, right? It's a test. But that is why self-control. We learn the self-control, we culture it within ourselves, and we keep ourselves connected with what's happening outside in the land. Be involved in what's happening in the society itself. Be involved in the land. And so I want to leave you with these thoughts, praying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give our brothers and sisters here in this masjid and all over the GTA and Canada and the Muslim world the best of this month of Ramadan. The fitna is pouring down on us. It's for a reason why it's happening. It's a reason. We're under a test for a reason. Don't think it's by chance. It's for a reason. And so watch what is going on. What can we do to counteract the negative image given to Muslims? Try to use this month. Try to use your wealth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fasting, accept our qiyam. May Allah accept our dua. ربنا تقبل قيامنا وصيامنا ربنا تقبل قيامنا وصيامنا ربنا تقبل قيامنا وصيامنا وأعمالنا كلها في شهر رمضان. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا وتولى أمرنا واحفظ أولادنا واستر عيوبنا وطهر قلوبنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا يا كريم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.